bring in ESPN.com NFL Insider KC Joyner, breaking down this game. All Eagles in the second half, 30 unanswered as they win 37-9 over the Dallas Cowboys last night, Pete Thompson, and really dominated the game. It was glorious, KC Joyner. How are you?
It was glorious. It was to do what they did there. I'll tell you, you mentioned special teams there. Here's the most incredible part to me about the game. I'll just start off with that. The ESPN and Stats Information has that special teams expected points added metric I frequently talk about. The Eagles last night, as could be expected when you lose your kicker, they had a minus 11.1 special teams expected points added, meaning that their special teams, if we look at how they performed, lost them 11 points, and they still blew Dallas away. That's incredible.
Let me ask you this question. They were able to run the ball. Dallas loses Lee, so that's a big loss for them. But you could really make an argument that Philly was so dominant up front that, yes, having Lee might have slowed them down a bit, but that was a really impressive fact in the game, was that Philly was able to just absolutely dominate them running the football.
They had a 50% good blocking rate last night, which is a tremendous number. Anytime you have 50%, I mean, that's an elite number. And they averaged 12.7 yards per carry when they got good blocking. 12.7 good blocking yards per attempt. That's incredible. I mean, if you're in double digits in that category for a game, it's great. For a season to be fantastic. And the Eagles, it was their best showing in that metric, in the good blocking yards per attempt metric last night. And a lot of that had to do with the Giants run. But what I loved about the running game was they started to show how they feel about these running backs. Okay, when they have Blunt in there, they're running certain types of plays. For a Jai, they're running traps. They're saying, okay, he's our quick hitter back. Now you're going to have to think about running trap plays, running short traps. The 71-yard run he had in the second half, that came on a long trap. So they're giving different looks to the defense to say you're not just going to be able to to stop us normally. You're going to have to think about all the different things we could do with all these different backs. It's incredible.
They ran for 215 yards, 33 carries. That's 6.5 yards per carry there. But they also made some plays in the air, through the air there. Carson Wentz didn't have his best game, but in the second half on third down, he made some plays.
He did, and that's the thing is, I remember talking last year after his first couple of games, and I remember after 3 weeks saying, this guy is doing things that, I'm breaking down tapes for over a decade, now, for about 13 years now, and saying there's things that he's doing on tape that I've not seen any rookie quarterback do, maybe outside of Bradford in his rookie season. And to have a second-year quarterback do the things that he's doing, handling the pressure like he's handling the pressure, and just he looks unfazed by it. I mean, it's not a metric analysis, but he looks unfazed by it. When you watch him on tape, you're not watching a second-year quarterback. You're watching a guy who looks like a 6 or 7 year pro. He's already moving ahead in my mind of some of the top quarterbacks in the league right now. I'm saying I think he's every bit as good as Cam Newton. I think he's getting up there with guys like Russell Wilson. I mean, that's where I think he's playing right now. He's at that kind of a level.
On the other side, no Elliott. Obviously, they struggled in that area. They ran the ball pretty well. But what was the trickle-down effect from not having Elliott last night? Even though they ran the ball well, what was the overlying big take from them not having Elliott last night?
Not having Elliott. Elliott he gives them a breakaway ability. Like the Cowboys last night, they did well on the ground. I mean, they had a 44% good blocking rate, and they had 9.5 yards for good blocking attempt. But most of that came on just those couple of runs in the second half where Morris got a couple hitters around the edge and things. And it takes their offense and says with Elliott they figure they can just pound you down and wear you down, and it's a different sense of you have to do it with two different backs. If you put Morris out there, you're essentially telling a defense, we're going to run the football. Morris doesn't catch passes. We're going to run it. If we put Smith out there, okay, now you got to worry about us throwing the ball. And if we go with somebody else, you got to worry about us throwing the ball. So it kind of makes their offense, if not one-dimensional, it makes their offense, it almost tells the defense this is what we're going to do, which is, as we talk about Philadelphia, when they've got their backs out there, a lot of times it's not clear what they're going to do. And Dallas is kind of, not want to say telegraphing, but it makes it more, it makes their offense more one-dimensional.
KC Joyner is with us here. Dak Prescott struggled the last two games. What is behind his struggles?
It's pass blocking for one. The pass blocking that they're giving him has not been very good. The pressure rates still were not good last night, and I think that not having Elliott out there also, again, it starts to put more of the pressure on him. We asked before. We talked about this with Philadelphia a lot. Do they have a plan B? Do they have a plan C? Can they go in a different direction? And with Elliott, it puts more of the onus of that offense onto Prescott. And we've asked before, can Prescott handle that? And everybody thought it was going to be an easy answer to that question. Yeah, of course he can handle it. Look how well he plays. Seeing it now going, no, he can't handle it. Because you also look at the passing game. Bryant's good, but I think he's a little limited right now. He's kind of banged up, so he's not quite the dominant receiver that he was before. Witten's a short pass catcher, and that's it. Williams is a vertical threat. He's there. What Torrey Smith is, he's a guy who can occasionally catch long passes, but that's about it. Beasley is a dink and dunk receiver. They don't have a receiving core that they can attack you in all ways. Their receiving cores are very limited in what they can do. So again, you put Morris out there. He's got limitations to other players, and you're saying there are things that everybody can do, but they don't have the type of versatility that the Eagles offense has.
KC, when you're 9-1, there's not a lot to worry about, and Mike and I are trying to examine things that maybe the Eagles could worry about. Are they getting enough from their wideouts? Is that maybe something they need to worry about?
But first, I'll be worried about my kicker too, obviously, because that's a big issue. I worry about depth in the offensive line. That if they take an offensive line injury, I know Vita's been playing better, but that would be a thing I would worry about. I don't want to nitpick at their offense and how well they played, but I'm seeing Blunt out there a lot of the time, and I'm looking at it going, isn't Ajayi the guy you should be using as your feature back? It looked like they were using him as the change of pace back and saying we're going to have Blunt up there because Blunt doesn't catch passes very well, and Ajayi can. So I'm looking at that going, I like what you're doing there, and you're getting Clement out there, and you're doing that, but I would like to see them rotate more of the offense to Ajayi and Clement and have Blunt as maybe a guy who wears the team down early and a short yardage goal line to transition him to a different role because I thought they might have been leaning on him a bit much last night.
KC Joyner, ESPN.com, NFL Insider with us here. And obviously, the last couple of weeks, Ertz missed the one game because he was hurt. Last week, he only had a couple of catches, two, I think, for like 5 yards. I mean, he really wasn't involved. It really shows the diversity of the Eagles' offense.
Yeah, and Ertz, he didn't catch any passes, and he also, a couple times in run blocking, he was beaten fairly badly. So I think he's a bit limited right now, too, although he played 94% of their offensive snaps yesterday. You'd think that maybe they didn't need to give him that many snaps, especially once they got the lead. Rotate the guy out and put somebody else out there so he's not trying to go. Maybe they think he's full speed, but he sure didn't look at last night, so that would be another issue for them as well.
On the Eagles' defense, obviously they harassed, they got on Dak, you mentioned the pressure, but how about the secondary with getting Darby back, and they had 3 picks last night? I mean, where is the weakness of that defense?
It's tough to say. I don't know that they have the weakness. I'll tell you what the weakness is. When you talk about last night, Chris Collins was talking about the front 7 and talking about the front 4 and saying, okay, the front 4, the defensive linemen, they do what they want, and the linebackers are supposed to go in and read what the front 4 are doing, and then they clean things up. That works great most of the time, but we talked before that Philadelphia allows a very high total in my good blocking yards per attempt category. So when another team gets good blocking, Philadelphia is allowing 9.1 yards per carry this year. That's below average. You really ideally want to be in the 7s in that category. And part of the problem is that if those linebackers get out of position, or if they read what the front 4 are doing incorrectly, or they take one false step, then you can get the big plays against you. So I think that's the downside to the defense is when if the offense is able to get good blocking, they're hitting too many home run plays, and Philadelphia has to find a way to shut that down a little more.
Let's look at the week that was, week number 11, and the impact on this wild card race, this playoff race. The Eagles, by the way, if they win next week and Dallas loses, I believe they would clinch the division on Thanksgiving Day. So looks like the Eagles are going to be in for the most part. Let's see what else happened. Detroit goes to Chicago, KC, and they get an ugly road win.
Yeah, and I think that says a lot about Chicago. Chicago's a team that they're not very good this year, but Trubisky's going to be a good quarterback. They've got good running backs. They've improved their receiving core. They've got a strong defense, a stronger defense than I think people think. They're a team that I probably have rated higher on my power rankings than most. So I think it says a lot about how good the Bears are. But the Detroit got the win says a lot, too, because in past seasons they probably lose that game.
Go to Jacksonville. They beat Cleveland, which we expected, 19-7. Is it time to take Jacksonville seriously, or, hey, we just beat Cleveland like you're supposed to?
Formula team, and there's a certain formula that they're going to win or lose games by, and they're very limited. Cleveland essentially said, look, throw the ball. We're going to take away the run. You have to throw the ball, and Jacksonville just would not do it. they're going to face other teams that are going to put them in game situations where they have to throw the ball, and it's going to be a problem for them. But Jacksonville's schedule is so favorable that I think that's not going to happen in the playoffs.
Green Bay gets shut out at home. Should they consider a quarterback change?
They should. You can't. Hundley is just a dink and dunk passer. He's not shown that he could do anything vertical. I'd almost rather have a quarterback who's going to be taking some downfield chances and making some interceptions, but hitting some big plays. Because right now he's erring too much on the side of making sure he doesn't make a mistake, and it's probably going to get him benched.
What in that Gagliardi winner, that local kid, Joe Callahan? That's what we're saying around here.
Hey, I think anything would be an improvement. Either that or just tell Hundley, you can take some chances. You've got Jordy Nelson. Put a jump ball up and let Jordy go get it, because Jordy Nelson caught I think 3 passes yesterday, caught 2 the week before, and it's all been dink and dunk throws. You've got vertical receivers. You've got Cobb. You've got Adams. You've got Nelson. You've got some people you can throw the ball to, so just take some more chances. Maybe Baltimore wasn't a team to do that against, but there's some matchups coming up to where I'm telling Hundley, if I'm the coaches, you've got to take some chances, because we can't be just a dink and dunk offense.
2 teams disappointing. A lot of expectations for Tampa. Miami made the playoffs last year, and they lose at home to Tampa Bay.
It says Miami, I thought they were the most overrated team in the league last year. Early last season, I said the talent-wise, I thought they were the worst teams in the league. I remember hearing some people on Twitter tell me, "Oh, you're crazy," and and when the playoffs came, like, "See, they're that good of a team." I'm like, "They're not. This is smoke and mirrors. This team is not that good. Their offensive line is terrible. Quarterback play is terrible. They've got some decent receivers, some decent running backs. Their defense does some things well, but doesn't do a lot of things well. Miami just has way too many weaknesses, and Tampa is just a team that is kind of in the same boat. And I think that team changes a lot when you don't have Winston under center.
What did we learn about the Rams in Minnesota?
We learned that the Rams still have. I think we learned more about Minnesota than we did about the Rams. The Rams are still an up and coming team, but it showed that Minnesota can take a game like that and take an offense like that. People were doubting their defense from the week before, saying, "Oh, well, look, they struggled, and the Rams are going to be able to come in there and do something really well." No, they're not. The Vikings play every facet of defense well. And got a big play offense that was able to do some things even in a game where they probably didn't take as many chances as they could. If they can improve the quarterback play and they get Keenum out of there and say put Bridgewater in there, which I think they should down the stretch, I think that's one of the few teams that has maybe 0 weaknesses.
A historic win for New Orleans. They were 0-2-33-1 in the situation yesterday, and they came back to win to go 8-2, 8 in a row, kind of ending Washington's hopes.
Yeah, and the thing is I mean, their defense actually had a fantastic game yesterday. In some ways, they got pressure 45.9% of the time, which is the highest in Week 11. And their offense, it just shows that they've got that kind of a big play offense. And that was a game yesterday where they finally had to say, "Breeze, you need to come in and win this. We've been winning by formulas, and now you need to come and win it." And Breeze still can do it, so it's why they're a dangerous team.
We also see Kansas City. What happened there? I mean, Andy Reid off the bye. This is your spot. They scored 9 points.
Their offensive line is struggling. Their defense is not getting pressure. They've just got a lot of problems, but a lot of it has to do with their offensive line that they're not doing anywhere nearly as well as they used to. I think they've been leaning way too much. They started leaning way too much on Kareem Hunt, and now he's kind of worn down, and they're now to the point where they can't fix that problem, and they should have been leaning more on Weston, not trying to bell cow Hunt and all that. And I just think there's a lot of problems there, but it's on the front seven on both sides, because their front seven, by the way, on defense graded as an F coming into that game for the previous 5 weeks, and they're probably still going to be at that level right now.
All right, let's look at how about the Chargers blowing up on Buffalo? I know Buffalo made a controversial decision to change quarterbacks. That blew up in their face, but can the Chargers be a factor in the AFC?
I don't know why Buffalo thought it was a good idea. They changed their quarterbacks when you're going on the road on a cross-country game to face a team that has a fantastic front seven and you can't pass block. It makes you wonder what McDermott was thinking. As far as the Chargers go, I mentioned that front seven is doing very well. Their run blocking's been a lot better. Their receiving core is getting better. Now they've got Mike Williams out there, and now this is a team that I don't think they're going to be. They're going to be. It wouldn't surprise if they made a run late to make the playoffs. I think they probably missed the playoffs. So this is a team that's going to be somebody to reckon with down the stretch.
McCoy, the fall guy, was that a worthy fire? Denver loses at home to Cincinnati. This guy was supposed to be like the hot coaching genius a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I'd probably fire the offensive line coach, because the offensive line's been the problem. They rank in the bottom 5 in most of the pass blocking and run blocking metrics this season. They've not been good run blocking at all, and frankly, their defense has not played anywhere near as well either. Although some of that has to do with the offense putting so much pressure on that platoon. But I don't think it's creative play calling that's been the problem. You're not going to get anywhere on offense if you can't get better blocking. So I'd be firing the offensive line coach.
All right, KC Joyner, New England beats Oakland, and New England's looking like they're New England.
Yeah, and the defense is finally getting back to the point, because part of the problem earlier in the season, in fact, a big part of the problem earlier in the season was they were just out of position. They weren't where they were supposed to be when they were supposed to be there. If that's the problem for New England, and you say, well, you've got Belichick as your coach, yeah, you'll fix that problem. And that's exactly what they've done. They're playing defense. They're playing higher percentage defense, so they're not making the big mistakes, and their offense can still attack you in every conceivable way. They're one of the, again, I've talked about complete teams. They're one of the teams right now that's getting a point where they might be among the complete teams.
Tonight, Atlanta, Seattle, big one. Atlanta wins, keeps them involved in the wild card. They got to go on the road, but Seattle's all banged up.
Seattle doesn't have Chancellor. Seattle doesn't have Richard Sherman. Seattle has people in the secondary who can be thrown at. Seattle has offensive line problems. Their running game has been completely non-existent, and yet I'm still picking them to win the game because Atlanta's offense can't get anything going either. So it's a litmus test for Atlanta. If you can't win this game, and I know it's tough on the road to beat Seattle, but if you can't win this game, if you can't find a way to take advantage of Seattle when they're weak, I can't see you taking advantage of any of the playoff teams coming down the stretch.
All right, that game's tonight, 8 o'clock, right here on 97.3 ESPN. Monday Night Football, good one, Falcons and Seahawks. We'll see how that one goes. We'll talk about it and recap all the Week 11 action tomorrow with who's in and who's out. KC Joyner will be back later on in the week as we will go over the Week 12. Man, we're at Week 12. I'm really sad about that. But we'll do that coming up later on in the week and get you ready for Eagles and the Chicago Bears. And that's all coming up on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Thanks, pal.
Appreciate it, guys.